and welcome into the Knicks-Verse. My name is George, and if this is your first time here, please subscribe and hit that bell. Turn on that bell so you know when I drop videos, and the thumbs ups. Thumbs ups are very, very much appreciated and very important. All right, this video is going to be this is going to be a special video, actually. Very different than the other ones that I've done. This is not an analytical video. It's not a recap. It's not a forecasting. None of that. This is a reflection video. Yes, this video is we're going to look at the New York Knicks 2021 season. This monumental season that has basically rejuvenated this franchise and in a lot of ways rejuvenated the city in some ways, because this franchise, it was not only was it bad and headed in the wrong direction, it was the worst. We had the worst record of the entire NBA for the past 20 years in totality. So we were not, and we were laughingstock. You know, we were Knicks LOL, and superstar free agents. They did not want to come here. In fact, two of them went to Brooklyn. That's how bad things got. But now we're 41-31, the fourth seed in the Eastern Conference, and the playoffs. We have home field advantage in the playoffs, home court advantage. The New York Knicks are the feel-good story of the entire NBA season. In fact, I say they might even be the feel-good sports story in the entire world at the moment. And none of this could have happened. None of this could have happened if it weren't for three people. They're led by three people, all who had suffered very devastating losses, injuries, or humiliation before they got to the New York Knicks. Yeah. And actually, one of them experienced some of it here with the New York Knicks last season. Now I'm talking about Derrick Rose, Tom Thibodeau, and Julius Randle. These three men somehow all ended up on the same team, going through a very similar journey of reinvention. They've reinvented themselves, each one of these three, to now deliver us a winning franchise. But the road was hard. It was. It was devastating for one of them, Derrick Rose. Oh man. You know, I debated showing the video of his injury, and I'm deciding not to. You can watch it. It's on YouTube if you haven't seen it. Check it out when you want. But no, because what this is about is what he did afterwards. Same thing for Randle. Randle also suffered a devastating injury, but not going to show that one either. Thibs, there is no video of Thibs having to leave the offices of the Chicago Bulls and the Minnesota Timberwolves after he was fired. So, it spares us all that. But we know what happened, and there were reasons why it happened. And there was reasons why the first time around for Derrick Rose here with the Knicks didn't go so well. And there was reasons why the first year with the Knicks didn't go so well for Julius Randle. Yeah. To turn that around, each of them had to look deep within themselves, study their own character, and look at what it is that is missing in their games currently so that they can deliver on the promise of being the winners that they are. I mean, Derrick Rose, the youngest MVP in NBA history, and totally deserved. Oh, Tom Thibodeau, like a 20-year assistant coach, I think he was associate coach with the Celtics. A lot of people give him a big part of the credit for why the Celtics won the NBA championship. But he was an assistant nonetheless. He finally got a chance as a head coach with the Chicago Bulls. And Julius Randle. He was the number 2 recruit in all of from high school. And he went to the Kentucky Wildcats and took that team to the NCAA finals. And that wasn't even that great a team, honestly. It wasn't. So it just shows you what kind of player he was. This guy's a winner. They're all winners. All 3 of these two. All 3 of these people are total winners. But, you know what? They weren't winning. Nope. Things went wrong for Thibs with the Bulls and with the Timberwolves. And some of it was because of his character. The way that he approached the young players, the way that he approached his bosses, management, though that led to his dismissal. So I'm going to begin with Derrick Rose. So he suffers this devastating ACL injury that robbed the NBA and all his fans. Basically, what he could have been. Other point guards have come along since him with a similar style. Russell Westbrook, De'Aaron Fox, Colin Sexton, all these, incredibly athletic, dynamic guards. And they all, basically, he was the precursor to them. And, man, that injury. God. Well, he suffered. It took him several years to finally get back out on the court. And then he suffers a meniscus tear in his right knee. And then I think again he suffers a meniscus tear in the left knee that had the ACL. And I think he had another meniscus tear. I think it was just injury after injury after injury. His style of play just is really tough on the body, especially the knees. And he even suffered an orbital fracture, which disrupted his vision for a while, which is why he developed the bank shot game. He's just never been the player that he was. No. He lost that athleticism. He lost that vertical leap. And, just recently, he uploaded this incredible post on Instagram talking about the whole idea of the vintage Rose. Vintage Rose is not who he is now. When we see him score 20-something points, it's not because he's playing the way he used to play, which is what vintage Rose would mean. No, he's a completely different kind of player now. And that came about because of the journey that he went through after the injury. He went on his last year, approaching the last year of his contract. The Bulls, they decided to move on from him. And it was probably a good thing for both, for the franchise and for him as well. He was traded here to the Knicks. Yeah. We had him here, and that was a good team in the beginning, man. I was excited about that team. I was constantly looking forward to watching them play. I had high hopes for them, but something was happening with him. He was playing for a contract, and in his mind, he thought, I can only get a contract if I deliver a high percentage of rim efficiency. So just get to the rim, get to the rim, get to the rim. So he basically gave up on his mid-range game and his three-point game. He's a 30% career three-point shooter, so he never really was much of a three-point shooter, which is what the Knicks wanted him to be. The Knicks wanted him to adapt and modify his game for the modern NBA. And he just didn't see that. He couldn't visualize that. So that led to his downfall with us the first time around, which eventually he went to Cleveland. And I think he only played 16 games there or so. Then he was traded to Utah, and he never even played a game there. He was cut, and then he was rescued by Tom Thibodeau in Minnesota. Yeah, so he went there, but he wasn't the Derrick Rose of old. And the Derrick Rose of new, I mean, he was definitely a productive player. I think he averaged even 18 points a game or so. But, again, the injuries, he was constantly hurt. He had to take games off. Partly because Thibs, his issues with minutes. A lot of people think that, Thibs may be responsible for Derrick Rose's injury, the initial one. The irony is, these two guys, this is now the third team they're together. So, obviously, Derrick Rose doesn't hold Thibs responsible. And if Thibs holds himself responsible, then he's keeping that to himself. But in a lot of ways, it's irrelevant. Because what is relevant is the bond that those two have. They have such a deep connection. They both see the game the same way. They love this game. I mean, they have a deep, deep passion for this game. Like ours, kind of. But theirs is, probably even more intense because they get to play it every day. They live it. They breathe it every single day in. Especially Thibs. But, Rose is a gym rat. Man. So, he goes to Minnesota. And then that didn't end. That ended poorly for Thibs, and then eventually Rose moved on, and he signed with Detroit. And even then, Detroit, he played. He had a decent year. I think he averaged 18 points a game. Again, not really. This is not a data. It's not a data video, so I'm not focused on that. But he had a productive season there. But it wasn't the same, He wasn't Derrick Rose. And that's what everyone was expecting. I'm sure that's what he was expecting. So over this past summer, from what I've read, he was hoping to end up with the Knicks with Thibodeau. It took a while, but in February of 2021, he joined the New York Knicks. And let me tell you, he came in with the right attitude. He immediately talked about how he made a mistake with his attitude the first time he was here. That, like what I just talked about, he refused to embrace a new style of play. But in the interim, before that, he spent a lot of time reinventing his game. Yeah, because he couldn't stop and move the way he used to. He couldn't leap the way he used to. He couldn't do the 1-on-4 fast break anymore, which he used to be able to do and deliver and get the foul, the and one. All that was gone. So what did he do? The floater game. He worked hours, countless hours on that floater game. And I think, even though there's not a data video, I think he ended up with the second most efficient floater game in the NBA this season. You can double check on that, but it's definitely, we've seen it. I mean, a majority of his scoring comes from that floater. And I was stunned. I was like, where did that come from? Well, you know where it came from? It came from someone committing themselves to reinventing themselves. And now look at him. He is fantastic. He's not, the Rose of before. He's a whole different kind of Rose. But you know what? I love this Rose that we have now. In fact, he is so impactful that since joining the Knicks, when he plays, the Knicks are 24-11. 24-11. Incredible. Without him, they're 17-20. So that just shows you the tremendous impact. Yeah, he's not the lightning fast guy he used to be. He's something else. But he has embraced being the mentor to the young guys like IQ and Obi. He's embraced his role coming off the bench. He's embraced the fact that he's not an MVP anymore. But he made the top 3 of Sixth Man of the Year, the finalists this season. So there you go, man. So that's one guy who came here, reinvented himself, and helped rejuvenate this franchise. Now, Tom Thibodeau. Tom Thibodeau was fired from the Bulls because of lack of communication with Paxson and Foreman, his two bosses. And the owner, they basically cut him loose. Even though Tom Thibodeau is to this day the second winningest coach in Chicago Bulls history after Phil Jackson. Yeah. So, he suffers that, that firing. I'm sure he wasn't pleased about it. But then he gets a tremendous job with the Minnesota Timberwolves. In fact, he's in control. I don't know what his full title was, but he was in charge of everything on that team. He made the player personnel decisions, and he was the coach. So he had all the power. But things went awry. Though, before that, he took the Timberwolves to the playoffs for the first time in 14 years that franchise had. The last time that franchise had been to the playoffs was 14 years before Thibodeau showed up. So he brought winning to Minnesota. But he also brought Jimmy Butler there, and along with Derrick Rose. But the Jimmy Butler experiment backfired, and he was basically forced to trade him. And eventually, this stubbornness on his part and his inability to communicate with the modern NBA player, which are younger. NBA players are much younger than the ones in the 90s when he first started out. Patrick Ewing was a senior. He had finished college, and he came to the Knicks when he was a rookie. A lot of these guys like Wiggins and Cat and stuff, they were one and dones. And that's basically how it is for all of the top level talents in this sport nowadays. They're all one and dones. Or a few of them are straight out of high school, like LeBron. So he was fired from the Timberwolves for lack of communication. So Thibs, I don't know if he had job offers, other ones, I'm not sure. But he took some time off. During that time off, he went on his journey of reinvention. He went and spent time with Doc Rivers when he was at the Clippers, to see how Doc deals with the players, to see how the locker atmosphere is. And then he went and spent time, I think, with Steve Kerr. I'm not 100% on that, but I think it was with Steve Kerr for the same reasons. He wanted to see what these coaches were doing that worked, because he wanted to reinvent himself. And you know what? He has. To a great extent, he really has. In fact, players, and they say that he's much more open now than he used to be. Taj has said that he smiles more. He's a little more chill. I don't know if that's the exact word that he used, but that's the inference. Derrick Rose has said it as well. He's adapted. And look at the result. This team is... It's a scrappy team. It's a hardworking team. They all play for each other. They trust each other. But Thibs keeps it... He keeps them focused on the one goal, which is to win. But, you know what? Yes, Randle played tons of minutes, and so did RJ. Though I have seen him make some modifications. He's sat RJ sometimes. He's given him a break. I wish he would do it more. And I think one of the reasons, and this is a new thing that I'm about to say, one of the reasons that, unfortunately, we have to deal with Elfrid Payton starting games is because I think Thibs is resisting overplaying Derrick Rose. Because if he starts Derrick Rose, then he has to... he's not going to... if the game's on the line, he's not going to pull him. He's going to end up playing him too many minutes. So if he starts Elfrid Payton and brings in Rose, at the 3-minute mark with 3 minutes left in the first quarter, then he knows, okay, I don't have to then worry too much about the minute load for the rest of the game. This is just me, pure conjecture. I think this might be one of the secret reasons why he's not starting Derrick Rose over Elfrid Payton. And it is to protect Derrick's knees and his health, his longevity. This is just a hunch. And if I'm right, it's because Thibs has learned. That's right. And he's redeemed himself. Now the third guy. The third guy is Julius Randle. Julius Randle was the number 2 ranked high school player when he was coming out of high school and into college. He went to Kentucky, and in his freshman year, he took that Wildcat team all the way to the NCAA championship. Now, that wasn't an easy feat because that wasn't that talented a team. Yeah, I think only one other guy is even in the NBA still from that team. And I don't think that guy's even doing much. So that always shows you, that's my criteria for whether you're playing with, whether you have a great team or not. And it's if those guys are playing in the NBA now. And only one of them is. Which is not that great for the Kentucky Wildcats, considering on our team we have like 5 of them. So Randle takes his team to the NCAA championship finals. They don't win, but he ends up being the highest draft pick of a historic franchise, the LA Lakers. I think it was he was the 7th overall pick, the number 1 pick for the Lakers, and he was the highest pick since James Worthy. So that's a long time. So a lot of high expectations. His first game breaks his leg. So Julius's journey has taken a little longer than in terms of when he's finally had to get to that moment of that like realization moment of, hey, what the hell am I going to do? What am I going to do? Am I going to keep going this direction, or am I going to change direction? So he plays for 3 years or 4 years, I think, with the Lakers, with his idol, Kobe Bryant, his mentor idol, and Kobe helped instill in him. I mean, Julius has always been a hard worker, but there's another level of hard work with Bryant. Kobe showed him the path to it. We've heard the story about, when the first trip to Dallas, they got off the plane and Kobe's like, hey, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm going to go have dinner with some family and blah, blah. He's like, nah, we're going to work. And they found some little gym somewhere. I think they didn't even go to the hotel. They went straight to the gym and they practiced. And Randle saw the commitment that it takes to be great. So that was the first step. But, Julius, that team, that squad, they were kind of drifting a little bit. And then Kobe, the next season was his last season. So that was the farewell tour. So they weren't really committed to like winning. And by that point, I think Magic and Pelinka and Jeannie Buss, they had decided that, you know what, we're going to go after some big superstar free agents. So they let Randle go for nothing. So this was the number 2 recruit in the entire United States, the number 7th draft pick, and they just let him walk. Wow, that had to have been a bit of an awakening for Julius. A bit of a slap in the face, I would say. So he goes to the Pelicans, and he banks on himself. He signs a 2-year deal with the second year as a player option. And you know what? He plays well. He puts up good numbers, gaudy numbers. But the team wasn't good. So the thing is, you can't, if you're putting up good numbers and your team sucks, then you basically suck. That's just the reality of it is in this sport. Those are facts. But he played well enough. He played well enough to get himself a contract with the New York Knicks. Now that part, I'm going to deviate for a second to talk about the franchise of the New York Knicks at that moment. So this was part of the humiliation that the Knicks we all experienced, when KD and Kyrie signed with the Brooklyn Nets. So Mills and Perry and Dolan had to pivot. And what they did was they signed Julius Randle to a 3-year, $63 million contract. And the third year is a team option with a $4 million guarantee. So, it's a lot of money, but it's only 2 years, really. So now Randle, he signs this big contract. He's going to play for Fizdale, who, in my opinion, is the worst coach the Knicks have had in my lifetime. Proven by how well Mike Miller did with the team once Fizdale was fired last season. Anyway, before that, so Randle, he realizes, you know what, I got this big contract, and I'm the number one on this team. So I have to play like the number one. But he thought playing like the number one was, just lighting it up, scoring 30 points a game, 15 rebounds. And that's all he needed to do. No. Remember No Handle Randle? The turnover-prone Randle? The Randle who never found an open teammate? That was last season. And that was a very disappointing season for him. And then he's realizing, you know what? I only have one more guaranteed year in my contract. So if I don't kill it that next season, which is the past season we just had, the 2020-21 season, I may be really struggling to get a good contract. And then, devastating to add to that was Kobe Bryant died in a tragic accident. So I'm sure that also had to have been a part of this kind of this need to reinvent him. It created a crisis point. That was the word I'm trying to find. The term, a crisis point, where suddenly he's facing tremendous uncertainty in his future, and he saw how life can be very fleeting. So he channeled all that into, and then, before I get to that, then the pandemic hits. So the season gets cut short. So now this crisis point, the season's cut short, tremendous uncertainty in the future, but he knows that one thing is in his hands. If he reinvents himself, his game, unlocks the great potential that was within him. So he commits himself to working even harder, resculpting his body, improving his handle, and developing that three-point shot. He developed his three-point shot. He was a 16% shooter in college. And then last year, he was a 28% shooter from the three-point line. This year, he's a 40% shooter. Incredible. Like the biggest, I think 42% is where he finished. I think it's the second largest increase in the history of the NBA after Joe Johnson. Yeah. But all that came from hard work during the pandemic, during the off season, practice, a commitment to playing the right way. He learned that being the number one doesn't mean scoring the most points. It means making the team a winning team. And you do that by exploiting what the defense gives you. Another thing he asked for. When Leon Rose and Wesley asked him, hey, what are you looking for in a coach? He said, I want a coach that's going to hold me accountable. In comes Tom Thibodeau. So, these three men who have come through some very dark times in their lives have all come together on the same team during a crazy season, a pandemic season, and taken a dormant franchise and lifted it to levels that nobody thought was possible at the beginning of this year. It's a fantastic story, It's truly one of the most incredible stories of, I think, in Knicks history, and it's still yet to be written, because right now we have great cap flexibility. We have, I believe, the third most first round picks of any other franchise for the next 7 years. We have all of our picks over the next 5 years, I think. We have all of our picks, and we have a great squad that works hard. They all play for each other, and they all are confident in themselves. Derrick Rose, one thing he always said is, I'm confident. He never lacked confidence. Tom Thibodeau, incredibly confident. Julius Randle, incredibly confident. These three guys and the rest of the team, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Taj, Nerlens Noel, and Reggie Bullock, Alec Burks. Everybody's contributing on this team. If I've forgotten anybody, it's just I'm so proud. I'm so proud of this team. I'm so proud that now when I wear this hat, here in Los Angeles, I didn't care before, because I'm that kind of guy. But now I don't have to defend them. No. Their record speaks for itself. And the team is, I love this team. And I'm so looking forward to what's going to come in the future. Thank you, Tom Thibodeau. Thank you, Derrick Rose. Thank you, Julius Randle. Thank you, the rest of the Knicks players. Thank you, Dolan, Leon Rose, Wesley, Scott Perry. Thank you. And thank you guys for coming into the Knicks-Verse with me. This has been an incredible journey, and we still got a lot more to go. Subscribe, hit the thumbs up, and I'll see you around the Knicks-Verse.